Welcome to James Madison's Montpelier. I'm Ryan Nobles from NBC 12 in Richmond, and we're continuing our conversation on the Bill of Rights. Joined by Police Chief Tim Longo from Charlottesville, who's also an attorney, Hank Chambers, who's a law professor at the University of Richmond, and Peter Irons, who's a widely published author and the political science professor emeritus at UC San Diego. Gentlemen, we're going to talk now about the Fifth Amendment. And Hank, give us some historical context for the Fifth Amendment, which includes a grand jury, double jeopardy, and self-incrimination.
You raise a real good point just by throwing in those three things. In some ways, it's a kitchen sink amendment. It throws in everything that says government can't do bad stuff in certain circumstances. That's really pretty much what it says. Due process clause is really about saying that the government has to follow procedures and rules before they can inflict harm or pain on people. And you see the self-incrimination piece is sort of a piece of that. It says you can't torture people. You can't do bad stuff to folks just to get them to confess. So that's the basic notion. Again, it comes from the Old English version of due process and the idea that there are limits to what the government can do, even though the government should be somewhat powerful in any society.
Why did the Founding Fathers think it was important, Peter?
Well, they thought it was important because of the experiences during the colonial period, and particularly back in England where they had what were called star chambers, and they used all kinds of means, physical torture and duress to get confessions out of people. In fact, in earlier days they even had these things where they would put people on stools over pools of water and dunk you under, and if you drowned, it meant you were guilty. So,
because you're an old Salem boy, right? So you know the story over there.
That's what, and we still do that with waterboarding too. But I think the point is that until the middle of the 20th century, torture in various forms was used to extract confessions. It's the old take them in the back room with the rubber hose. And the Supreme Court decided a case, it's called Williams versus Mississippi, in which an African-American defendant had been beaten until he confessed. It turned out he actually wasn't guilty, but the court for the very first time said that confessions extracted through physical pain or emotional distress could not be used against a defendant.
And Chief, why do we have this provision that allows people to protect themselves under the Fifth Amendment and not self-incriminate themselves?
Let's make sure we understand. We're talking about compelled self-incrimination. Mm-hmm. Self-incrimination can be a great thing. We call it admissions against self-interest.
Right.
The Constitution prohibits compulsion. And the reason so is, as Peter just pointed out, when someone is compelled to do something, whatever that something may be, it renders whatever the product is as involuntary. And that offends due process. That goes completely against what the Fifth and frankly the Sixth Amendment is all about in the criminal justice system. It's about making a process fair for people at their most vulnerable time. And if you've ever been arrested and charged with a crime and had to appear in court, you appreciate and value the Fifth and Sixth Amendment and the protection that it affords you. And so this is an important piece of the criminal justice process.
So make that distinction as clear as possible. It's a big difference between someone who's committed a crime walking up to you and saying, I've done this, versus you attempting.
Absolutely. For the same reason, any criminal defendant has the absolute right to take that witness stand. What the law says is the fact that they don't can't be held against them and create this presumption, well, then they must be guilty. But yes, folks are free to make admissions against self-interest. The Constitution protects against compelled self-incrimination.
Remember, confession is good for the soul as well as anything else.
Amen.
So as a consequence, you are more than welcome to confess to things that you've done. You just can't have someone standing over you beating you until you say what you did, because you just want to make it stop. That's why you confess. You just want to make it stop, and you can't have it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.